Morning. Good morning, everybody. How are we all doing today? Good? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. Do I have screen sharing privileges? I do. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. So, as I've been introduced, my name is Ross. I've been teaching and tutoring English. How do I turn my face off? I don't want to be looking at myself while I talk. I think that's better. Okay. So I've been teaching English for quite some time now, about 11 years, I think, maybe a little bit more, at least officially in tutoring capacity. I don't know where to start. I was born. English was taught to me by my great aunt because I had learning difficulties as a child, and eventually I grasped firmly the English language, which is still difficult to speak because English, as I will always say, is probably one of the dumbest languages on the planet. Because we have rules for rules, and then we have exceptions for the rules, and then exceptions to those exceptions, and rules for those exceptions. So if you're ever finding that you're having difficulty mastering something, that's probably why. It's a very silly language. Right, so I attend York University for my special double major in philosophy and psychology, which I have nearly completed, and then I shall be going to law school. Anything else about myself before we move on to anyone else? Do you guys have any questions about me at all? I'm not quite sure what to let you know what you might be interested in. I play a lot of video games, so I will make a lot of references in English lessons to video games, movies, books. It's mostly so that way if there's something you may not quite understand, you'll be able to relate it at least to a video game or a play anything or read anything or watch anything. Usually we'll have to figure some way to get you a easy way to relate. Other than that, you'll notice that I like to drink a lot of coffee, and I'm always going to be talking about food because desserts are delicious. And other than that, let's turn the floor over to who should we start with? At the top of my screen, I've got Haley. If you want to introduce yourself, and then we can work our way like a snake down to Ewan, Adam, Isabella, Jennifer, and then eventually Jacqueline and Daniel. So, Haley.
My name is Haley. I'm in grade 6.
All right. What's your favorite food, Haley?
French fries.
Very good. Very good. All right. Grade 6. And do you have any special talents or hobbies?
Well, I really like to read a lot, like a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Good. 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 Ewan, let's hear from you. So what grade are we in? Any special talents and or hobbies, things that you really like to do? Do you want to introduce yourself, Ewan, to the rest of the group?
I'm Ewan. I'm in grade 4, and I like to draw and read.
All right, awesome. Adam, on to you.
What?
Do you want to introduce yourself to the group? What grade you're in? Maybe any hobbies and or talents that you may have, things that you like to do?
My name is Adam. I am a grade 3, and I like drawing.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Isabella, let's hear from you.
My name's Isabella, and I'm in grade 4.
All right, any special talents or hobbies, things you like to do?
Play videos and
All right, I heard the play video games, but I think your Wi-Fi may be cutting out there. Mentors, Jennifer, let's hear from you next. Did anyone hear that? I'm sorry, Jennifer, we can't quite hear you. You might want to type in the group chat if you're having technical difficulties. And I guess, Daniel, let's hear from you. Or Jacqueline, would you like to introduce yourself before? No, Jacqueline? Okay, Daniel, let's hear from you. Your mic and camera. Okay, yes, perfect. As long as we can see what you're saying, that works. Grade 5, all right. And any special talents and or hobbies, Daniel? Oh, this is only to me. So Daniel says that his microphone and camera does not work. That's how, but he's going to chat to us. So he is in grade 5. His favorite hobby is to play video games. Awesome. Video games are always an easy way to give examples. If you play Minecraft, I definitely do that. So that is usually an easy game to relate to. You can always just let me know. Jennifer, thank you. So Jennifer says, hello, I am Jennifer. I'm in grade 5 and my favorite hobby is reading. All right. Awesome. For those that are big readers, any favorite novels or series that I might need to know about? You've got our basics. You've got your Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games. I know I'm forgetting a couple. Percy Jackson series. Mortal Instruments. I'm a big Mortal Instruments fan. It's a guilty pleasure. Anybody else? Books that they're very interested in before we get started?
Keepers of the Lost City.
One more time.
Keepers of the Lost Cities.
Something of the Lost Cities? I can't quite hear. Keepers of the Lost Cities. All right. Is that a series or, I mean, is that a novel series or just a book?
Novel series.
Novel series. I'm gonna Keepers of the Lost Cities. Wait, don't I have that on my bookshelf? I'll have to double check that. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for the introductions. So we've got from 3 to 6. Okay. We've got a bit of a challenge today, so hopefully everyone will enjoy it. But we will take it as we go. So I'm going to share my screen. Excuse me. Now I'm going to do my best to see the chat messages, because when I share my screen, I'm very bad at trying to figure out how to see them. But if you are typing in and I don't see them and somebody else does, please let me know. So if you could type, you can type to everybody just in case if you have a question or comment. Okay, so if I minimize that, open this, and let's share. Let's start with, we'll start with this. Okay, so I can still at least see the group. That is helpful. Open that up a bit so I can still see all of you. So you should see in front of you what is a Google document. Soon, all of you will actually no Google, don't open up now. Always when I mention its name. I'm going to be giving you a link in the chat right now, but you won't be using it just yet. But for those that can and want to participate, I will first try and figure out how to open the chat. Chat. There we go. So this is to everyone. You will be able to access the Google document that you can participate in or with when we get to the actual writing. And I'll tell you how to go about doing that when we get to that. So first things first, there is a lot of stuff in English that we, there's a lot that we won't be covering. There's a lot that you should know by now. So if you see this little picture here, I'll zoom in a bit just so that way you'll get a, oh, that's too far. Thank you. So the English language has quite a lot going on. We've got a lot of the stuff that we're going to be working with. So sentences, paragraphs, format and structure, form, voice, atmosphere, the works, literary devices, reading, writing, spelling. In terms of reading, you will be getting a fair amount of reading, but there will also be some visual activities that you will, well, there's always going to be writing. When I say visual, I mean there will be something visual involved that will cause you to write or be the reason that you are writing something. Verb tenses, that's really important, working with verb tenses. Now there is a phrase that I'm looking for here, and it starts with a C. When I talk about sentences and structure and grammar and punctuation, verb tenses, parts of speech, parts of discourse, etc., does anyone know what those are all called? The word that you may be looking for does start with a C, if that helps. Social media, no, that starts with an S, but social media certainly, social media, I would say right now, is detrimental to learning the English language. Mostly communication, getting closer. It does start with a C and does end with an N, and the second letter is an O. I'm not expecting any of you to really know it off the top of your heads, which is just fine. Control H, does that? Alt H, whoopsies. Okay, now I know what to do to open the chat. Perfect. Communication, so convention is the word you're looking for. English conventions. That just refers to all of the parts that we're talking about with sentences, the flow of speech, grammar, use of punctuation. So English convention, it's really necessary and important to have some kind of background in it, which most of you should by now, because that builds on the tools necessary for creative writing. So I'm going to continue on because I don't want to spend too much time on that. So let's briefly take a look at an example page of what students will eventually have. So when you join up, you get your own little Google document that you get to work from. The only people that have access to it are you, your parents, and the Academy, and me, of course, and anyone, I guess, that you would like to share it with. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to, but if not, like as long as we speak, you'll be able to get access to it. This is why you would need either, well, most likely a Gmail. I think now you can only use them with a Gmail, but you get a place called your chalkboard. That's where all necessary information and materials are going to be posted. Everything's organized by date, and you even get this handy dandy table of contents that's at the side. Sometimes it likes to hide, and I'll explain all of this when we actually get to it, but it pops up right there. So let's do a bit of talking before we get to the actual activity. Now, if I switch over to, actually, how do I get rid of this bar? How does that go away? Hide video panel, hide floating media controls, hide video panel. Is that? Nope, I want that to come back. Control Alt Shift H. Okay. Oh, no, what's going on? And even Google doesn't like that. Okay, but I'll try and find those back later. Right, so you guys will all be doing your work here today, but we're going to talk about a few things. So one of the questions that I always want to start with is, why do we write? What is the purpose of writing? What do we have this thing for? Why do we, when we can talk, why do we need to write? So let's start with the first hand, I guess. Any volunteers to answer the question? Why do we write? There's no wrong answers. It's always good to answer. In fact, it's better to answer and be wrong than it is to stay silent. You learn a lot more, believe it or not. No one? I don't see any hands. Okay. Well, then I'll just continue on. So why do we write? Well, first of all, we do it to communicate. I can't type today. Communication. There we go. So we do it to communicate. When we can't speak to each other, we have to be able to convey what is on our mind to somebody else. That's really important. Another reason is to express ourselves. So people write things like poetry or journal entries, diaries, essays, letters, all of that to just sort of speak to someone. They write stories. That's a big way to express yourself, to write some kind of narrative story or, well, all stories essentially are narrative. There's just different points of view. Anything else? Any other ideas people may have? Why is it that we write? No. So we communicate, we express ourselves, and that's essentially it. When we can't speak, we have to be able to put our thoughts down. It's also rather important because our brains aren't perfect. We forget things, and if we've written it down, well, generally it just won't go away. So to preserve information, the communication isn't just for me to speak to you, it's also to speak to other people. When we write informational texts or textbooks, it's all to put forth information. That's why we have libraries. Libraries will always be there. When the power goes out, we still have books. Books are very important. They will contain all the information we need. If ever there was one of these like movie post-apocalyptic sort of incidents, books will still be around. Hopefully. I would hope that we could still use books. That would be really sad if we can't. Right, so parts of speech. What are some of the parts of speech? Well, when I say that, I'm usually referring to nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, postpositions, interjections, disjuncts, conjuncts. Like all of these are the things that we use in everyday speech. Although the rules of speech, there aren't actually any. So if people tell you you speak poorly, they are being confused. You can write poorly, but you can speak any which way you want. And technically, you're not wrong. But the way you write should reflect the way you speak and vice versa. So that's why people say that. So you've got your nouns, your verbs. Do I have a... Yeah, you've got your noun, verb, adjective, and then this is like types of nouns and whatnot. We will go through a little bit of that. I don't have so much vocabulary or at least parts of speech study planned. We will be looking a bit at homonyms and homophones when we look at poetry. But that's about it. Okay, so what is a sentence? Anyone want to jump in? 'Cause I'm happy to just keep talking. Yes, Haley, what is a sentence?
A group of words that like express something.
Perfect. Do you want to specify a little bit more? Express something?
Like it could be a question or a thought.
Question or a thought. All right. And are these questions or thoughts about anything in particular? They are. Yeah. So the little bit you're missing is questions or thoughts about something. So a sentence, at least definitionally, is a unit of measurement in terms of expressing a full and complete thought. Something that contains a subject, your topic, what are you talking about, and a predicate. what is being said about that topic. So you've got your very short sentences, and the shortest possible sentence is how many words? Anyone want to take a guess? What's the shortest possible sentence we could write? A full and complete thought. Anyone want to take a guess? I'll give you a hint. It's less than 5 words.
3.
3, very close. Anyone else? Only got a few numbers left. No? Well, who guessed 3? Is that Ewan? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, you're so close. It's 2 words. Does anyone know what parts of speech we would need to make a full and complete sentence? No? A noun and a verb. So nouns, people, places, things, abstract, concrete ideas. They're just items or objects or thoughts or things or people. And then a verb, which is an action and or state of being. A state of being is, so if you think of the word hungry, you can be hungry, but you can't act. Well, you can act hungry, but there is no action for you to, for me to look at someone and say, oh, look at that, they're doing hungry. They are hungry. Like if someone's holding their stomach and you can hear the noises, you can only assume that it's hunger. Or if someone's crying, like to be sad, well, sadness is a thing, but when you are sad, the verb, in that case, I am sad or I am happy or I am hungry, is going to be the am or the are or the is. That's your verb. And then happy is a noun, and you've got a pronoun, a verb, and a noun. How does that work? Well, the state of being. So we'll go a little bit more into that. Now, what is a paragraph? Pretty close to the idea of a sentence. What is a paragraph? It is a grouping of sentences about, anyone? About a specific topic. It is an expansion on a singular thought. If I am talking about bees in one sentence and then I'm talking about laser pointers in another, most likely those 2 sentences should not be paired together in the same paragraph. But if I'm talking about the lifestyle of bees, the migration patterns of bees, how long a bee lives, the types of bees, all of that could fit into a singular paragraph. But the moment I go off topic, I've got to switch to a new paragraph, create a new paragraph. Does anyone want to tell me, if they know, what is the general rule of thumb in formal writing for how long a paragraph should be? How many sentences generally? No? So we've got our topic or introductory sentence. Then we have our supporting sentences or detailed sentences or explanatory sentences or evidence, support, and explanatory sentence, and then our concluding sentence. So 5. 5 is your essentially full and complete formal paragraph. You can argue for 3. I would say keep that to informal writing or something about something that's like nonfiction or maybe speech writing. But typically when you are giving full and complete answers, I would expect 5 sentences. When you see something on a test that says a short answer and it only gives you 3 lines, fill those 3 lines and see how many sentences you can fit on it, provided that you're not just babbling, which is something that we will certainly be talking about in our sessions. Okay, so what makes good writing? Does anyone want to tackle that one? What makes good writing? Pretty similar to what makes a good read, but what makes good writing? Anyone want to give that a shot?
Adjectives.
Adjectives, certainly. Why would we be using adjectives to make good writing? What do you think?
To make it not boring.
Yeah, and why is it that adjectives would make something not so boring? Adds a level of information. If we're trying to discuss, let's say, elephants, and we don't tell our audience, if we don't have pictures, if we don't tell our audience, our readers, what an elephant even looks like, are they really going to be interested in this creature being 2 tons, eating only grass, but is completely scared of mice? Okay, it's why would something that big be scared of a mouse? And what does it even look like? And because of the size of its ears, it can hear very well, and it has 4 knees. Okay, well, I'm going to be left with imagining some strange looking creature in my mind until you give me a very good, vivid description of what we are discussing. But yeah, using adjectives, very helpful. So that's part of descriptive writing, which would then be part of using interesting ideas and important ideas. When we write, we want to make sure that our ideas are interesting, and the idea of being interesting is very subjective, and we'll probably discuss how to figure out what is interesting or how to know what something is interesting, but that's usually when you consider your audience, your purpose, your goal and role as a writer, the central idea and whatnot. Other things that make good writing is a logical and effective organization to what you are writing. If you are writing on a topic and your sentences don't flow from one into another, or they jump all over the place, or they don't fully complete an idea that you're discussing, that doesn't really make sense. When I say logical, do we know what the word logic means? Anyone want to give me a bit of a definition there? No? Logic? Logical? Makes sense? Is sensical? So using logic, it's almost like math. Math is a very logical subject. In fact, it is purely logic in this case. But logic uses our brains in a way that deduces from facts, evidence, and just think of it as logical means makes sense. That's the easiest way to really understand it. And effective, like if what you're discussing, like if you're trying to tell me about or describe something to me, but you don't use, as Ewan pointed out, any adjectives, that's not very descriptive. If you're trying to tell me how to do something, but leave out important specific details. So if I'm baking a cake and you say you need flour and sugar and eggs and something to mix these things together, now put the flour and the sugar and the eggs together and then mix them and then put them in the oven. Okay, that's not very effective at all. Why would something like that not be very effective? Am I going to end up with a cake at the end of being told you need flour, eggs, and water and oil and?
No, because you'd probably just throw everything in.
Yeah, I could put a dozen eggs in, and then maybe a cup of flour, and then 2 pounds of sugar, and 4 liters of water. Like if you don't give me specific information, effective presentation of the information, I'm not going to end up with the product that you want me to have. Haley, you had a comment? No? Okay. We're going to move on very soon. Other things to consider about good and effective writing is to have your own individual voice. Voice is something that we're always trying to work on as writers. Your voice has to be individual, as in it has to be your own. Mimicking someone else is fine until you find your own voice in your writing. And knowing, am I a narrator? Am I trying to inform or explain? And also your voice has to be appropriate for what you're discussing. If you're trying to talk to children and you start talking like a scientist, they may not understand you. But if you, the same way, other way around, if you speak to an adult as if they were a baby, they're going to be offended or just feel like you don't know what you're talking about. So knowing your audience, very important. Anything to mention? And also voice, of course, is like the expression of your own personality. In times when you write, and there are pieces of writing that don't care about your own personal feelings and views, well, your voice is the way that you're going to end up expressing those without actually breaking any of the formal rules. Other things, word choice, using specific or detailed use of words. Specificity of language is very important. Saying something is small and something is tiny, very different. If something is minute or minuscule, if something is large or grand or great, if there are many or few, if there are some, just quantities, qualities, if it's red, okay, what kind of red? There are many hues of red. There are many different shades. It's round. What kind of round? Is it like an oval round, or is it like almost pointed round, or is it sort of round but actually has flat edges? Where is something like location? Where is something in relationship to something else? Very important. And we do a lot of stuff like that, and I'll show you some examples as well. Anything else? Sentence fluency and expression, we can talk about that later, and conventions we've discussed already. So that I can cross off my list. Right, and now what can we do to become better writers? Okay, I want to get you guys writing very soon. So what can we do to become better writers? Anyone want to put in some suggestions? No? Let's see, is everyone, we still do have everyone here? Yeah, okay. So read. Reading is a very effective way to become a better writer. Read in the language that you want to write in. So if you read, let's say you speak French and you have to write in English. Well, the way French grammar is structured compared to English grammar, your writing in English is going to be very strange to an English native speaker, an English reader. Like if you speak Mandarin or Cantonese, and then you're trying to write in German, the language structure is so drastically different that someone that's reading your work in German is going to be very upset that conventions were not followed. Like, why would you put the predicate and then the subject, or why would you say it this way, or what are you even talking about now, because I don't know what you're referring to, and vice versa. It's like, why would you need to say all this when we know what you're talking about? So learning to, like, reading in the language that you want to write in, very helpful. Other things, we practice. Practice is very important. The goal that I always try and have is to be able to get you to write a lot. It is a lot, well, not just a lot, but it is greatly significant. It is for you to write more than needed and then remove parts. It's a lot better and a lot more preferable than for you to write too little. So it's always good to just put your thoughts onto a page. Sometimes that's what all you actually need to do. Your brain does this magical thing that if you think you're stuck and you just start to write, whatever comes to mind, your brain's actually now working. Once it no longer has to hold all this extra stuff in your mind that you're thinking about and you've put it onto paper, it gets to put it on the back burner and start bringing new things forward. So it's always better to write more because it's easier to take stuff out than it is to add stuff in. Adding stuff in is where we usually go, oh no, I don't know what more to write. I think I've said everything I need to say. But if you have, then you wouldn't need to write more. And learn to play with ideas. So thinking critically, that's a big thing that we're going to be discussing, and I'll get you guys to get started very soon. Thinking critically is a huge part of writing and good writing and writing well. Critical thinking is applying your mind to something that you're going to be working with. So the challenge that I've got for you guys here, you've got hypothetical questions, and we've got 6 of them. And I may just want to get rid of one, just unless you guys are like really clear. But hypothetical questions, that's sort of our activity that we're going to go for here. We have to read through the questions and consider what are the rules of the question. Now, there are implicit and explicit rules in any kind of statement, things that we have to assume and things that we can assume. And when I say assume, does anyone know what I mean? What an assumption is? What is assumption? It's like another way to say it is like a well-educated guess. No? So when you make an assumption, you take in evidence, you take in observations, and because of these observations, you create conclusions, and then from those conclusions, you get to work forward. So let's say you have to do a math formula, and you already know what part of the answer to this formula is going to be, so you can make an assumption and then continue on from there. But then later you find out you get the wrong answer. Well, it's because your assumption may have been wrong based on your observations. Your well-educated guess may not have been educated enough, but we'll get more into that later. This is an activity that I'll be starting our sessions, the first few sessions with, addressing hypothetical situations. So that way we can use it to lead into some more formal writing, like essay structure, development of argumentation. Argumentation is very important and pretty different from persuasion. Persuasion, you're trying to convince someone to do something or believe something or change their mind. Whereas an argument, you're almost doing the same thing, but there are a lot of rules to follow. It has to be a lot more logical, a lot more structured. You can't worry about people's feelings because in an argument, they don't matter. And when I say they don't matter, I'll explain that a lot more. I'm not trying to invalidate people's thoughts and feelings, but arguments are cold. They're very scientific compared to persuasion. So the writing task, if you have managed to get onto the Guests of English page that should be found in the chat, you can head on over to the workspace, find a space there, and what you're going to want to do is choose a heading, choose heading 2, write your name. So, and then that's your section. You will write there. Here is where I shall write. And then if someone's already got that section, you just press enter a few more times, go to heading 2, and this one is mine. And then just if you would like to participate, you can take one of these hypothetical questions. So when we take a look at questions and we have to try and answer them, answering them is never enough. And that's something that we're definitely going to be discussing, is why is it that if someone asks me a yes or no question, why can't I just say yes or no? Why do I have to keep talking? Like, why do you give me like this essay question? Do you think pie is better than cake? Well, yes, it's better than cake. No, cake is better than pie. Okay, why? I've given you a whole page to give me your answer. Why are you giving me a single word? And that's where the critical thinking aspect comes into play. These questions are easy to answer, but the biggest part of the activity that we will be getting into is how do you justify the way you have answered this question? And we'll be asking ourselves some questions in order to answer questions. So is anybody on this page with me here? I've got a moose. Oh, the moose is gone, and I've got a beaver. Okay, so bring your cursor on down below, find a spot in the workspace, give yourself a name, or if you want me to put your name up, I can do that for you. And then we shall discuss some of these questions. So as everyone is grabbing that page, does anyone need the link again? I should have given it to everyone. Anyone? Okay. If you aren't on the page, that's just fine, because I'll be talking as we go here. Of the 6 questions, does anyone have a particular preference? I'll quickly read through them. So our first hypothetical question or situation is, what if you could accomplish simple tasks while sleeping and still get a good night's sleep? What would you do while you were sleeping? That's a good one. What if you could choose anyone in the world to become best friends with? Who would you choose? Number 3, what if you could get every single country and every single person in the world to collaborate on one goal for an entire year? What would it be? Number 4, what if you could go back in time by 1 hour? What would you do with such a power? And that's apparently the most popular so far from what I've done with that. What if you could give the power of speech, so the ability to talk, to any one animal species? So cats or dogs or cows or birds. What animal would it be? Why this particular animal species, and what do you think would happen as a result? That's a tough one. There's a lot of explanation to go into that. And then the last one, which has also been a little bit popular, but some funny answers have come out of it, and some people have been like, oh, wow, that's dark. What if a single teaspoon of your tears could be used to cure cancer in one person? And then that's it's pretty open-ended there. So if you are on this page, put your name somewhere here, please and thank you, if you would like to have your work there. But it's okay if you don't. By a show of hands, or if you can actually put numbers up, I don't actually know how to start a poll. Does anyone have a specific question that we would like to focus on for the purpose of this activity? Anybody? Nope. Why does it always do that? There we go. Let's take a look here. So Daniel has voted for number 1. Anybody else? So if we've only got just Daniel voting for 1, we may just stick with 1. So who's writing on our page here? Is that also you, Daniel? Who's our anonymous sheep? For how much words in a question?
I think it's
Pardon me?
me.
Okay, Ewan, awesome. If you could just write your name there, so that way I know who's going to be writing there. Oh, how many words in a sentence? Okay, I see. Yeah, since the chat didn't tell me you had spoken to me. Okay, so I'm going to go with what has been so far the most popular question. Thank you, Ewan. Awesome. So the question we will take a look at is, what if you could go back in time by 1 hour? What would you do with such a power? So answering the question by itself is fine. It's also probably really easy. But the difficult part is justifying how you got your answer, or how is it that you can claim to give your answer, the justification. What makes your answer. Now, I want to say the word right, but there is no such thing really as right and wrong. When I say justification, it's what is the reason that you can give this answer? So a justification for wearing a raincoat would be rain. It's raining outside, so this is the reason why I am wearing a raincoat. It wouldn't make much sense to go outside wearing a raincoat and rain boots if rain is nowhere near. It's like, okay, well, it's not going to rain for a week. Why are you outside wearing rain clothes? Or if it's 30 degrees outside and you put on a snowsuit, there is no justification for this unless you know something that we don't and it's suddenly going to snow. It's like the whodunits, like police or detectives are always trying to figure out the justification for someone to commit a crime. Why did they do this? Well, here is their justification. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just is the reason or the motivation why someone did what they did. All right, I see more. Who's we got? The anonymous sheep, the anonymous capybara, the Dumbo octopus. So we're getting into the last airbender here. Kooka and Ifrit, and we're in Final Fantasy 2. All right, so if everyone could just put their names down below, and we're gonna take a look at this question. What would you do? I mean, what if you could go back in time by 1 hour? What would you do with such a power? I would like everyone to put their names down and get started on your answer. Now we're gonna write for a little bit, and then we're gonna discuss the next part of how we would answer this. Haley, perfect, thank you. So once again, guys, once you've written your name, just press enter, and then you should be able to type regularly or normally. If not, you can always highlight this option up here called styles and click on normal text. All right, Haley, perfect. Ewan, Jennifer. Pardon me? Yes. As soon as you put your name down on the page, you may begin putting your answer on the page as well. Got Ewan, Haley, Jennifer. Awesome. Bella, did you want to get here as well? Or Daniel? It's okay if you don't want to. That's completely fine. Or Daniel, if you can't access it, and well. Okay, so let's give you guys some time to do the writing here. And don't worry too much about the style of what you've actually got, because we want to focus more. Perfect, Adam. Thank you for joining us. That's awesome. All right. All right, so far, Ewan's got the right format here, starting off with addressing the actual question, so our topic of the paragraph that we will end up writing, or hopefully, if we end up writing a full paragraph, that'd be awesome. Okay. And don't worry about right or wrong answers. When I start asking you questions about your answer, that's going to be, like, that's part of the activity, the critical thought. How much can we really justify our answer based on the question that we've taken a look at? What rules did we assume are part of our Okay. 1 hour. So as you're all answering that, for me personally, I would use this to sleep in all the time. I would also use it to study. It would be, oh, thank you. I would definitely use it to write tests. I would probably cheat on my math tests because I am so bad at math, but I need to do a lot of it. Cheating is not good. Don't ever do it. But if I had magic powers, I think I would be an exception to a rule. I would answer all my questions, and then after about half an hour left of the exam, that's when it'd be like, okay, this is where I will come back to. And then 30 minutes later, I would like ask everyone, okay, so what answer did you get for this one? What answer did you get for that one? Or I would double check my work. Okay, did I follow the correct formula? Did I mix anything up? Use it to check my work. Okay, I figured it out. I'm going back in time. And now I'm in the exam and I do it, but mostly to sleep in. You know how when you press snooze, you just want to keep going. Well, I would never oversleep. That would be so great. But the problem with that, is one of my students pointed out, is then I would always be 1 hour older. And if I slept in and all that time adds up, suddenly I've aged. So maybe use the time to exercise a little bit too. And don't worry so much right now about spelling or grammar at the moment. I just want to work with the answers for now. We will we will move over grammar and punctuation as we go, but since we're mostly focused on writing, or at least creative writing, we don't put too much focus into it. All right, and of course, I'm just going to add commas here and there and a few. Okay, Adam. So Adam, I like your answer. Don't get rid of it, because I do want to address that, because so far no one has picked up on this possibility, unless I've misread your question.
1
But
hour
still,
ago, I was actually doing my Zoom, so I was thinking they would think I was still in my Zoom class, but actually I'm spying on them, because that was past 1 hour ago. That was me 1 hour ago, and then I'm just spying on them for 1 hour.
all right. So that's something we're going to discuss, because that's
I hope they don't find me.
okay. And screen share their movies. Go on Zoom and screen share movies. Yeah, I would probably do that as well, Jennifer. Not that exactly, but you know, when you watch an episode on TV, or I don't think anyone watches TV anymore, on Netflix or one of those forums, and the episode's really good, and you're like, oh no, I have to watch another. Go back in time and just watch another until you've watched an entire series in a day. I would probably want to use the time to. So what would you use the time to do, Haley? And if you guys are like really thinking, put the first thing that comes to mind. That's always the best idea. Put everything that you think of first. Think about it later, because that's like one of the habits that we're going to get into, so that we can refine it. Always put down your first thoughts. That's so helpful. If you have no thoughts whatsoever, write down that you have no thoughts. It's like, I would have no idea what to do with this power. I know there are like plenty of things. You could go back in time, and my tutor said that he would take a nap or watch another TV show, or depending on how the power works, maybe go back in time and eat the same piece of cake over and over again. Oh, now would that just make me fat? or would I not actually consume those calories? Oh, that would be crazy though, wouldn't it? You could eat a bunch of food and then be full and go back in time and then be hungry again? Ooh, that sounds really cool. Or if you have allergies to a food that you really like, maybe like you could eat the food and then go back in time before you ate it, and then you would never have an allergic reaction. Ooh, that would be really cool. I could eat mushroom soup again. All right, we'll do a few more minutes and then we'll discuss a little bit. We're certainly going to go overtime, just so you know, if you have to go somewhere, I'm sure Michael will excuse you. Oh, sweet, someone used a parentheses. We get to talk about that. And just remember, don't worry so much about grammar right now or certain writing conventions. I just want you to practice writing. Adam, is there anything that you want to expand on in your answer there?
No.
No? Okay, that's fair. So Adam, if you could you add one more sentence to this just for the smallest possible paragraph, if you could?
Okay.
If there's like an additional thought that you might have. But if not, that's fine. It's perfectly all right.
I also wrote another thing. I would eat my chips in secret. Because they think I'm doing my Zoom, so I'll just eat my chips and watch.
That's fine. Awesome.
Doing the Zoom.
You're scheming. Scheming is good. Schemers are always good. At least I believe so, because then they're always thinking. All right. As we're waiting for everyone to finish up their what they're writing, does anyone have any random facts? I always love little trivia bits. Like, did you know the Oreo cookie, when you're eating what comes out of the package, you're actually eating 2 Oreos in that single cookie? Because the Oreo cookie itself is the chocolate cookie part. So someone thought to put 2 of them together with that filling and call that the cookie, but it's actually both of the individual cookie bits that make up an Oreo cookie. So if you eat a single Oreo, you could call it or say, I am eating Oreo cookies, because you're not wrong. There are 2 of them. All right, Ewan, you've got a little bit more to write. Cool, cool. And if you guys are done or feel you're done, just scroll up a bit and put a cursor somewhere else on the page, so that way I don't see you still in your answer. So Adam, if you feel you're done, just scroll up a bit and click on like, thank you, perfect. All right, Jennifer, you and Haley, I'll give you guys 2 more minutes. But if you like really have something to say, then I'll give you maybe 4 at most, but 2 is our goal here. I'm really concerned, you, and why would your neighbor throw a knife at you? Of course, if this is just hypothetical.
They
There's a neighbor right beside me, and another neighbor tried to crush me with a car.
We need to visit your neighbors.
I know.
Okay, Haley, awesome, thank you. Jennifer, as soon as you're done, just put your mouse cursor somewhere else further up on the page, just so that way I know that it's thank you. All right, Ewan, and once Ewan, are we done, or do you have a little bit more to add there? All right. Some interesting answers. Awesome. I'm just going to shrink the text a bit. Let's agree on 16. And it's a similar size here. And then Ewan, I'm going to increase the font size of yours after. All right. Daniel, how about you? Did you want to leave me a message here? What would you do if you could go back in time by 1 hour? Okay. Okay, Daniel would go play more video games. That's fair. Okay. I'll give you 1 more minute, Ewan, to finish up your last couple thoughts there. Thank you. All right. So if you, what was that? Oh. All right, Ewan, if you are done, you can move your cursor just up a bit. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Daniel says that he would play more video games. That's fair. Yeah, I won't explore that one too much because I could talk about that for days, and we don't want to go there. Ewan, our first answer is, if I could go back 1 hour. Actually, Ewan, do you want to read that out to us?
No.
No? Okay, that is fine. In classes, though, I probably will get you to read out loud, but for the sake of time, I am fine. If I could go back 1 hour, I would go back after my neighbor threw a knife at me. I would spy on him to see if he's in the Russian mafia or something. I would do it because I like spying, and I want to call the police and have some fun to move in. Have someone fun to move in. I would also do it to my other neighbor who tried to crush me, and my friend. Then when he came back to try to crush my brother, you've got some dangerous neighbors, Ewan. We should pay them a visit, get together as a group and get them. Haley, if I could go back 1 hour, I would probably, sorry, Haley, would you like to read or should I just keep going?
You can read.
All right. If I could go back 1 hour, I would probably want to use the time to open the TV and search up one of my favorite TV shows. I would go on to the next episode I didn't see because normally I wouldn't have time to look at the TV. I would also spy on my family because it would be fun to watch what they're doing. Okay, Jennifer. Jennifer, am I reading for you as well? Yeah. Oh, looking at the time, I'm just gonna, no more option, I'll just keep going. If I could go back 1 hour, okay, Jennifer said yes. If I could go back 1 hour, I would go on Zoom and chat with my friends and screen share movies. I would also watch TV because sometimes I don't get to watch my favorite TV shows. Or I would play with my cat because she keeps rolling around and chasing after her squirrel tail. That's her favorite toy. My dog has the same toy. I think, or no, it's a fox. It looks like a squirrel by now. And Adam, if I could go back 1 hour, I would see what I have been doing an hour ago. I would spy on my mom and dad, and they think I'm doing my Zoom, but in reality, I'm spying on them. I would also eat my chips in secret. All right, some great answers here. So answering the question is really easy. At least I hope you found it easy. But the challenge of this would be that now I would say, okay, all right, you're doing stuff here, but how can you justify this answer? So Adam, you gave me something here, but by the way it sounded, you didn't actually do what didn't mean what I thought you did. But so this, I would see what I have been doing an hour ago. So did you mean that you would go back in time and then watch yourself an hour ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you did. Perfect. So this question only says, what if you could go back in time by 1 hour? What would you do with such a power? In one of Adam's assumptions, he assumed that if he went back in time by 1 hour, sort of like in Harry Potter, I guess, with that time turner device, then he would actually be able to go back and see his past self, in which case it's his future self that comes back in time. So there would be 2 Adams. So that's an assumption that Adam would make there. But someone else could assume that if you, like if the question says you are going back in time, then perhaps you go back in time and it's not like there isn't an extra you, but it's still just you. You go back in time and end up exactly where you were, but knowing the future in a way. So that's one of the constraints of the question, one of the critical assumptions we have to make. Does this question mean that there's going to be an extra one of me, or does it mean that I am the thing that goes back in time? Is it actually all of me, or is it my mind that goes back in time? Other things like, does going back in time change the future or the past in any way? As I had pointed out with food, if I eat something and go back in time 1 hour, have I still eaten it? Am I still full? Or this whole like screen sharing with your friends in movies? Do your friends, so for Jennifer's, or is it just you? The other things to consider, if you're going back in time by 1 hour, do you remember what happened in the future? Or is it just you undo whatever happened? Like if you're writing a test, does any progress that you make, like a saved game, do you have a save state? So if I go back in time, do I still have my answers on my questions? Haley, if I go back in time to search up my favorite TV shows and watch the rest. So this one doesn't make very many assumptions. I would also spy on my family because it would be fun to watch what they're doing. So this sort of is like with Adam. Would there be an extra you? Would you, the hour ago, still be doing what you were doing until you went back in time to 1 hour? But then what happens after that? And now, the parentheses was the last thing that I'll mention. And then it seems that we will finish up here. But the rest of this activity would be a main focus on trying to figure out how did we understand the question, because that is going to be how we can justify what we've actually written. So that would be the biggest portion of the activity. The last thing here, the parenthesis that we have here. First of all, awesome. You knew that the period goes on the outside, unless that was accidental, but just take credit for it because awesome, thank you. Anytime you use a parentheses, usually the period goes on the outside. It's rare that a period goes on the inside. And the other thing here is, was the parenthesis necessary? Not quite. You could have just used a comma instead of having to put it into parentheses. So these rounded things, they're not brackets, they're parentheses. Brackets are squared, just so you all know. Yeah, okay. That was a lot to pack in all at once. Other things just before we finish up. So some examples of some activities, and then I'll hand the floor back over to Michael. So usually on your own page, you get a workspace. Everything's organized by date. This is where you do all your in-session work or in-class work. You'll have your table of contents, and you'll always see the latest date popping up. It could get crowded over time, but I do my best to keep it rather organized. And then you get your homework space. This is where all homework is posted, and almost all of it gets completed. So sometimes the homework will be complete today's activity, and then there may be additional pieces of homework. And we do our best to usually give you spelling homework. The only problem is spelling quizzes online are very difficult to conduct with all the autocorrect nowadays. So if someone eventually can figure out for me how to administer these properly, then we'll always have them. But I put my biggest focus on learning what a word means, because knowing how to spell it, okay, sure. But if you don't know what the word means or how to use it, there is no point in spelling it. If you can't use it. It's like if I'm giving you a shovel and you don't know that it's meant to dig, why do you have the shovel? Okay, yeah. So you'll be given your spelling words as a particular format that you'll be using to actually present the homework itself, and then the homework is written there. External links. So if I give you a link to go to, 99.99% of the time the link is safe. Like there's always that rare case where something could go wrong, but I've never had that happen. But I would like to leave room for error. So they'll be numbered, and then you've got a comment section. That's where, depending on the date, so today's July 3rd, if I had a comment from July 3rd, you would see a little text box that says C, comment number, and then there would be a numbered comment in this section. But if it appears on another date, like if it said Monday, July, whatever, then you would, like, I'll explain that later. Other activities that we have that we would be doing, something like World Kindness Day. You would watch a video, you would make observations, and we would talk about like outlines to short stories and narratives, and you would collect your observations, as many as possible. So that way you could justify why you've written what you've written. And I give you a brief outline. Yeah. And then this is just an example of, so the video that I gave to everyone is like 2 minutes and 10 seconds long. And some of their stories ended up like this, but this little outline that I've written here, which is not complete and could definitely be worked on, is only 30 seconds of a video that is the same length, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So the first from here to about there, if that's all I'm getting for the whole 2 minutes, we've got work to do. And I will, of course, help with that. Some poetry and vocabulary. So I'll be giving you some rather tough to speak poems, but easy to read. Like, we must polish the Polish furniture. He could lead if he would get the lead out. The farm was used to produce produce, etc., etc. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of vocabulary study there. Descriptive imagery and writing. You get a picture, and then you do your best to use prepositions and descriptive wording to point everything out. Yep, I got your message. Thank you. I'm trying to wrap up. And then like mystery story starters. So these are just like a couple things that we would probably take a look at. Other than that, that's everything that I have to show you. So I guess then the floor is now back to you.